So I've got a bunch of videos queued up. Cool. Hi Meeps Music, male and or female. If they take reaffirming drugs and change their mind after, what help is available to them? Currently not a huge amount. You can expect trans communities to treat you like shit and gaslight you. The cast review in the UK was saying that we needed a lot more like aftercare for regretful transitioners. To me, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I don't know. I'm not like, I don't like the attitudes that a lot of trans people have towards detransitioners. And it's interesting how quick they are to deny, like throwing these people under the bus. But it's also interesting that the only ones that ever like talk to detransitioners, it seems, especially regretful ones, are people like Blair White or who's the other one? Buck Angel, you know, those kind of people. The more woke trans people, they only ever seem to say that like, oh, well, it's a very small amount of people. Like, we should care about them, but there's not many of them, you know, and it's, I don't fucking know. It's bizarre. Thanks for your honesty, sub. I respect you a lot. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Good to meet you. Just a link searcher. I was pretty shocked at how tall Lily was, to be honest. Yeah, I'm sure she's like, I can't remember how tall she is exactly, but like way taller than me. I'm like 5'10", so. Anyway, so we have a few videos from like detransitioners themselves, couple of media pieces, some of the more woke trans types, like I was saying, someone who seems a bit more unbiased. We got a bunch of things I'm just gonna watch, and we're gonna think about detransition and the way that trans people talk about them. Have a look. So this first one is called Horrors of Humanity. That's the channel. 6-figure subscribers, quite big. I transitioned and detransitioned. Someone called Alia. I don't know if this is their channel or an interviewer's or something, but we'll find out.
I was born biologically female and transitioned to male, and now I'm detransitioning. I didn't feel like I belonged with myself. My name is Alia, and this is my detransitioning journey. Throughout my entire transition for the last 6 years, I probably spent upwards of $10,000 to $15,000, and that's including surgery, my hormones, and syringes. For about 3 years after coming out socially as a trans man, I was really nervous to go on hormones. I didn't want to change myself. I didn't know what was going to happen with hormones. I did know that I did want top surgery though. Top surgery is the process of removing breast tissue. For me, it was just something that was going to make me feel more comfortable. When I was small, so I'm thinking like 8 to 12 years old, there were moments where people would mistake me for a boy. I dressed in masculine clothing. I hung out with a lot of boys. Going through puberty, my breast started to grow. I realized I do not want this and I do not feel like this. As far as when it came to transitioning medically, that wasn't until I was about 2021. When I went to therapy, I decided to go on hormones because there was a moment where I finally just felt very fed up. I had severe body dysmorphia. What I was looking into the mirror was not reflecting back for me. There was a moment that I really just was like, I can't live like this anymore. And I thought that hormones were going to be the answer for that for me. I took testosterone.
And hey, it's tough when you latch on. I wonder how many like younger trans people especially aren't very happy, and this seems like something that will solve all their problems. I don't know, because I mean, I feel like to an extent maybe I did that as well, but I'm the kind of person that like I'm here now, and I don't really I don't really have regrets because my life wouldn't be really any different. In fact, it might be worse because, you know, I met someone that I really love after I transitioned. That wouldn't have happened otherwise. You know, it is what it is, but I'm more worried about this for like other people, I guess. But yeah, you know, you wonder how much they kind of latched onto this because they were unhappy about their lives or something. We should be able to like think about this kind of thing and talk about this kind of thing without it being controversial, but I don't know.
For 6 years. Testosterone helps masculinize the body, so that's with fat redistribution, hair, and voice. Transitioning looks very different for each person. How you express your gender, how you want to look, that's all defined by each individual person. When I reflect back and I think about what was difficult as being male, I was prejudged a lot that I was aggressive or not clean or not in touch with myself or, you know, any of these things.
Yeah, it's interesting. The other thing I wonder is like how many of these like more feministy kind of trans men go into it sort of thinking, oh yeah, I'll take on all this like male privilege. And then you find that actually in plenty of ways, like society and the world is a lot colder to you when you're a man and when you're seen as a man, you know? Like, it's really not a case of, I don't like being a woman, I don't like how the world treats me, so I'm going to be a man and it's going to be like a lot better. Like, it might actually be worse for you in some ways, especially like in terms of how you're socialized, where forming relationships with other men is just not going to be how you think it's going to be, like Jesus.
And it's not who I was. The more that I started to get into that masculine expression as my beard started to grow fuller, my voice got deeper, and I started to look like a cis male. I started to feel like I wasn't connecting with the people around me anymore.
Well, yeah, all the trans people that are around this person are probably like non-passing FTMs who still wear makeup and shit like that. Like, when it actually comes to assimilating, it's not easy, especially in this day and age where you're going to get a lot of shit for it. Like, anyone who wants to assimilate with cis people or whatever we're calling them, like, you get kind of shunned for that shit. I was watching stuff on the High Wire with Del Bigtree last year relating to this. By the way, oh yeah, fair enough. Your daughter is about to have a baby in 2025. Brace for impact. Fair enough. Kindness is king. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I don't know, I probably come across a bit sharp sometimes, but I try my best.
Even though maybe the outside world was seeing me as male, it wasn't the same exactly how I felt in the inside. I didn't feel like I belonged with myself. I went into a deep depression hole for about a month or two. And I finally was like, I need to figure out what is going on with me. I had the thought that I don't have to be on hormones for the rest of my life. So when I decided to detransition, when I spoke to my primary care physician, she told me I can just go off of hormones. She said, you know what, just take it slow. Your body can adjust to it and it's just going to take time. You have to have a lot of empathy and compassion for yourself and all of the things that you've been through to be able to accept and understand why I was going through those things. And it was a beautiful experience. My message to the world is, who cares what people think of you? Whether they be family, whether they be close friends. If you are not being your full authentic self, you don't need to be this other person just to please other people.
Yeah, fair enough. I try not to be cruel. I mean, no one's perfect, I guess. You know, it is what it is. But yeah, so that was someone called Alia. Yeah, I don't know, interesting. I don't have a huge amount to say because I'm not a detransitioner. I want to listen to them rather than be like, oh, you're dumb for this, that, and the other reason, which 100% some trans people do, which kind of disgusts me, you know, like, we shouldn't be throwing these people under the bus, but we pretend we don't, and then we do anyway, I guess. So this is another one, regret 1 decade post-op MTF, that's male to female, sexual reassignment surgery. I messed up my body. This person is called Autumn Asphodel, another quite big channel. Let's have a look.
It has been a decade since my sex reassignment surgery.
I'm perfect in getting it wrong. I feel like that too sometimes.
And the honest truth is that I wish I never did it. I wish there was another way, but there wasn't. I thought it would make me happier, and initially it did. But now the only real benefit is day-to-day activities, not having to worry about a bulge in my pants. Was that worth the constant issues I've had, the dilation I have to do for the rest of my life, for the drastically reduced sex drive and lack of sensation? I thought it was worth it initially, but I was wrong. I do not believe in regret. This decision I made that I will have to live with for the rest of my life. I cannot predict how things would be if I stayed with my old parts. But even if I did, that would have eventually become unusable since estrogen destroys the male anatomy. You cannot get erections and have a diminished sex drive. Then I thought that since my body is constantly trying to heal after surgery, since it considers it to be an open wound, then has that destroyed my immune system, making it harder to actually heal from serious infection and injury? I don't know the answers to that, but I feel like I have destroyed my body and my life.
Hey, listen, there's one thing, like, I've had to be off, like, my HRT a few times recently, for various reasons. And like, one of the things that is kind of crazy about it is just the paranoia, because you really don't know what it's going to feel like if it is affecting you. Like the kind of stuff you can get, such as osteoporosis. Like, I don't know what the warning signs of osteoporosis are. It's like having porous bones that are way more, likely to break, I don't know what that feels like. So it can make you like drive yourself crazy. I bet it's kind of the same kind of thing for this, because you don't really know what you're doing to your body. You're just kind of putting faith in what the doctors told you, and obviously they would have told you a lot of the risks before you started.
Life with surgery and hormones. The issues I had very early on should have been indications to me that I should not have done this, but I hated my male self so much that I needed to. And now there is no way to go back. To be clear, I have no intention of detransitioning, nor do I wish to present as a male. But I also will never know if the physical issues I have today would be resolved if I never transitioned at all, or was able to see if they normalized by going back.
I appreciate that. When we were kids, no sex drive, just being there. I guess, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a very sexual person myself. I take an antidepressant, which completely like kills any drive I might have. So I just think about other things. It's not a huge focus in my life anyway.
If I had known about the irreversible physical damage I caused to my body and me denying it, thinking it was for the best, then I would have never done any of this. Since I don't believe in regret, I must face the physical and mental challenges head on to do my best to live the highest quality life possible.
I mean, you don't have to believe in regret. You still kind of do. I don't know. I suppose I'm telling this person what to think about a problem that they have and I don't, but I don't know. The regret is kind of clear from here, but hey.
Even though the hormones and surgery have wreaked havoc on my body, and now my mind, I have to keep pushing through for the best quality life I possibly can. That is also my word of advice to you. No matter how hard it is, or mistakes you've made in the past, these things happen so you can learn from them. Don't be like me and deny problems until it's too late. Rather, address them so you can be happier and live a healthier life. Let me know how this works for you. Have a great day.
Yeah, Autumn Asphodel. So interesting. It's always good to hear someone that's at least willing to be like super open and honest about this kind of thing. Like, that's kind of what people need, right? So the next one is going to be different. I've got different sources, so if one of them seems a bit kind of turfy, the next one might seem very much not that. So I don't know, just bear that in mind. This one is from Sky News. It says, hundreds of young people seeking help to return to original sex. Charlie Evans, who detransitioned in 2018, speaks to Sky News about the people who have undergone gender assignment surgery but wish they hadn't. This is from October 2019, so this is quite old.
Ruby began identifying as male at 13 years old. Now, 21, she'd been planning to have surgery to remove her breast.
So right away, here's this thing, like, if you make a decision to transition at 13, and then you follow all the steps, like, let's say you get puberty blockers because you're somewhere that isn't the UK, you go on to hormones, and then you get, like, surgeries, let's say by the time you're about 23, like, you've kind of effectively made a decision to potentially sterilize yourself, or at the very least prevent yourself from ever like breastfeeding your child. And yeah, you're effectively making that decision at a really young age, which, you have to wonder whether you're able to make that decision at that age. And the other part of it is, Yeah, the other part of it is, if you start that young and are able to progress through quite quickly because you started so young, by the time you're in your like mid-late 20s, if you start having regrets, it's like, you're like how many years post-op at this point? Yeah, it doesn't bear thinking about, but a lot of people don't take those kind of concerns seriously. What's my story? Is it on the YouTube channel? I mean, I have lots of videos on my YouTube channel. In terms of my story, I've been trans since I was 20. 25. Yeah, I started transitioning when I was 25, about 9 years ago. And I don't know, that's about it. I transitioned. I found that trans communities were not very nice. I've found that a lot of trans issues are like heavily propagandized, not only by people who don't like trans people, but the trans people themselves. It's become a whole mess. I don't know. There's so much bullshit around being trans, you know. There's other stuff going on in the food chain. Yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, I talk mostly about trans shit because I am trans, and I think some of it, honestly, is just me trying to figure out what the hell went wrong, because it seems like everything's going, like, backwards, and it seems like our communities are getting worse and worse. Like, other trans people are incredibly hostile to me, like, all the time. Fair enough. Yeah.
But in May, she made the decision to come off testosterone and detransition to identify as female, her sex at birth. She doesn't want to be identified, so we've changed her name.
I figured it would be better for me to try to deal with my gender dysphoria in a different way, rather than permanently changing my body.
How much support did you feel was out there for you when you came to this conclusion?
I didn't feel like there was any support out there.
Yep, you're not getting it from the trans communities, Jesus Christ.
Other than like a few friends online.
Ruby now feels her eating disorder was more of a factor than she first realised in her gender dysphoria.
None of the therapists that I spoke to brought that up. They didn't think that it was linked.
You had an eating disorder, you're probably bringing up plenty of things by yourself. That's a joke, I'm just kidding.
Do you?
I think so, yes. Because they're both kind of based in how I feel about my body, so I've seen similarities between the two.
Charlie Evans is forming a charity to support people in Ruby's position. After going public with her detransition story, she discovered an online community of 5,000 in a similar position.
5,000. Wow. But they're outliers, they're the 1% or whatever of detransitioners, even though what we call detransitioners is kind of funny if you look into it. I'm going to get into that more as well. I already had a video about someone called Dr. Jamie. I'm not sure why most detransitioners are FTM. MTF detransitioners are much less common. To be fair, since about 2015, FTM trans people have been the majority of trans people. So there's more females transitioning. There's probably going to be more female to males transitioning back, you know.
People alone in her area of Newcastle.
I was approached by a young woman with a beard, and she hugged me and said, I'm a detransitioned woman as well, I've just stopped taking testosterone. And after that I felt like I had to do something. I'm hearing from hundreds of people, and I think some of the common characteristics are they tend to be around their mid-20s. They're mostly female.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, are we sure that we want kids to be making these decisions? That this is where they lead, you know? Fuck, I don't know. I can't understand how gung-ho some people are about, like, transitioning kids when it's like this. Yes, pay attention to Clive de Carl in 70s and knows a heap about molecular biology. I'll have to look into him at some point.
And mostly same-sex attracted, most are lesbians, and often autistic as well.
The Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust told us...
See, this is true, like, this is all the kind of stuff that people are going to be like, oh, you're just pushing these, like, these talking points or whatever that all the TERFs are saying. Well, I mean, isn't it true? Aren't quite a lot of trans people autistic? Aren't quite a lot of trans people, like, you know, all that kind of stuff, I don't know.
The experience of regret described here is extremely rare. Their gender identity service for children in Leeds and London now has a record.
I don't actually trust the numbers at all. I think that people who detransition but like continue their social transition or like redirect it into like non-binary or something, I don't see that in any way as the same as these kinds of people that went through a physical transition and now regret it. Okay.
Record number of referrals. The clinics here and in London see 3,000% more patients than they did 10 years ago. Among girls, referrals are up more than 5,000%. There's no question this service is helping.
By the way, apparently this is just due to it being more apparent that girls can transition to, nothing to do with social contagion at all. No other factors, like it being very trendy. Well, it was getting very trendy by 2019 for sure. I don't know. We don't have a lot of good answers for all this kind of stuff, but you know, we'll pretend we do anyway.
Children who feel distressed in their own bodies. But the full impact of children making decisions about their gender at such young ages may not truly be clear until much later in their lives.
Yeah, I feel that so much. And hey, people can tell me that I'm bringing up TERF talking points or right-wing talking points all they want. It doesn't actually answer the question. And that's the point, to be fair. They don't want to answer questions like this because it's not advantageous to. But people are still going to ask them. And the thing is, when people ask these kinds of questions and try and get answers from like the supposed trans communities, and the only answer anyone gets is complete, what am I looking for? Complete diversion from the actual point into political bullshit. It's like, well, that reaffirms in you that these people don't have any answers, and that, you're going to go to people who will answer, and they won't give the kinds of answers that trans people like necessarily. Like, hey, there's a risk you're taking when you mess people around instead of trying to actually be honest with them. Kind of weird that FTM makes up so much of the trans population. Must only be in the Western world, because in Brazil or Thailand there are definitely more MTF. That is quite possibly true. I don't know. I think transition is kind of different in the West than it is anywhere else. But like, again, until 2015, like MTF, was the most common kind. And you just started seeing females like rocket past from about 2015 onwards.
At 21, it's had a positive outcome for Jamie and his mum. After testosterone and surgical treatment, he's far happier than the torment of his teenage years.
It was kind of hell. Like, it's just not something you'd want to go through if you were trans. Like me, it's just, it's awful. Like, everything that happens to you within that stage of puberty for a female, for a trans man, it's awful.
There's currently no data for how many in the trans community detransition, and to talk about it can be viewed as transphobic. But people like Ruby say more discussion is needed, as well as more options for people with gender dysphoria.
They're saying there's no data. A lot of trans people are very confident in saying that regretful detransitioners are like 1% or something very small. To me, it seems like the numbers are being very skewed. There's a video I did about someone called Dr. Jamie Talks LGBTQIA+, whatever her name is, where I went more into detail about my suspicion on that, but it probably is going to come up again anyway. So next we have someone called Luxander. This is called The Myth, in all caps, of Detransition. Groundbreaking new study out of Australia is poised to shift the debate around gender-affirming care for transgender youth. Maybe, who knows? So this was a study that only found 1% later re-identified with a sex assigned at birth after commencing medical transition treatment. So it's a study that's, I guess, suggests that it's going well. By the way, I'm not using fucking its pronouns. I'm sorry. Like, there it is. I'm not calling you its. That's just not going to happen. Anyway, let's see what this person has to say. Oh, this trans person I was watching is now live. Coincidence. Yeah, it's crazy. P4GY. I hope you're doing well.
Personally, I don't think that producing facts and statistics is going to make a huge difference swaying the mind of hardcore Republicans or hardcore transphobes.
Well, what about moderate trans people like me? Just sub. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah. Maybe, yeah, you're not going to change any minds, but then when does stating facts and statistics and stuff change the minds of like rabid trans people? But no, hey, maybe you'll change the mind of a moderate trans person who is kind of somewhere in the middle. Its was used to dehumanize trans people once, and now people identify as it. I don't know. It just seems like a fucking trend to me. like I'm being so subversive by being an it because people aren't normally called it. It's like, whatever, you know. If you're still doing that by the time you're over 18, then I don't know what you're doing with your life, quite frankly.
Who don't believe in trans rights or who scaremonger about detransition, but it's nice to look at sometimes, just see like, okay, here's what the statistics actually show. And there are reasonable people out there who are receptive to statistics and peer-reviewed information. And
I don't know how this is going to be presented. I'm very worried off the bat that this is going to be there are reasonable people out there, as in there are people who will agree with me on this. But hey, let's see. Listen, I've come across a lot of crazy trans people. So I tend to see the side shave and the piercings and the it's pronouns, and I tend to jump to conclusions. And that's not what I'm trying to do. So let's be good faith here. I might end up agreeing with everything this video says. We don't know.
they respect the scientific process. And to them, we can appeal. We can say, look, there is a groundbreaking study out of Australia, out of Perth Children's Hospital, showing that only 1% of patients receiving care detransitioned or desisted with virtually no loss to follow-up. So looking at this, okay, Perth, Australia, this was published in JAMA Pediatrics.
I did not realize it was just going to be, is it just the whole thing? It might not be actually, okay. I was worried it was just going to be reading through a study for like 10 minutes. Anyway.
Found that 1% of trans youth who were receiving gender-affirming care at a clinic they went ahead and re-identified with their sex assigned at birth. Only 1% of all of them.
And by the way, it's definitely worth thinking about why it is that these people are so invested in there being a low desistance rate.
That was in addition to the 4% who re-identified during the mental health assessment period or earlier and did not proceed with receiving gender-affirming care. So there were 4% of people in this study, 4% of trans identifying children who stopped identifying as trans during the mental health assessment process. So the screening process that's supposed to keep people out who shouldn't.
What was it? 5% of 552, so 55, 27, 28, I don't know.
Have done it. It's 95% effective in this instance because 4% were correctly screened.
Is it 95% effective? Or did just 95% of them carry on their transition, you know? By the way, like regretful detransitioners, like in no way, as far as I can tell, do like suicide statistics come into it anywhere. Like we don't know how many people committed suicide because they regretted their transition, for example.
Out in the initial process of screening, and then only 1% got through, received medical care, and then decided to desist from receiving, from like identifying as trans. So it's pretty solid.
I can't tell what this source is. Hang on. I don't think it's linked. I'm not going on your blue sky. I don't want to be nonced on. That's a joke. You're thinking about slavery, black, white, yellow, it's all the sexes. We're all slaves collectively. Should be paying attention to our handlers. Yeah, I'd have thought. Only 1% regretted? No shot. You have to remember this is just one surgery. This is just one study based on, 552 people. So it's possible, but you have to think about how representative this study actually is. And I don't know what it's going to say about the kind of culture around it. I don't know what it's going to say about any of these people's like social groups. Yeah, there's a lot to consider. And this was between 2014 and 2020. And then measuring re-identification rates in 2022. Yeah.
The study was based on 552 young patients from a time period of 2014 to 2020. They measured re-identification rates in 2022. This one is going to significantly influence the debate on gender-affirming care according to Aaron, due to the unique methodology.
According to Aaron, who's Aaron? What is this source? I need to know what this source is now. Aaron in the morning. Of course it's fucking Aaron in the morning. Jesus fucking Christ. Aaron Reed is a complete propagandist, hack, piece of shit. Should not be used as a source for anyone. She is completely what's the word I'm looking for? Compromised, ideologically compromised. We can find her talking about the CAS report, the CAS review, if that's gonna help. CAS review. I always say it wrong. I don't know. Yeah, white turf in chief. Jesus Christ.
We are thrilled to welcome back to the program Erin Reed, journalist covering LGBTQ.
This is the person who this person's source is. Loads of people use this person as a source, including people like Vorsh, for all kinds of like trans-related stuff. I think she is appalling personally. I think she is completely like compromised ideologically. And the fact that this person is using her as a source makes me question their motives and makes me question how much they actually know about this shit versus how much shit they're being fed by this person.
Plus legislation and news.
This is the majority report, by the way. Emma Vigeland here is not a particularly intelligent person in her own right.
And proprietor of the Erin in the Morning Substack. Erin, thanks so much for coming back on the show. But this, based on your piece this morning in your Substack, Erin in the Morning, which I'd encourage everybody to read, that's incredible.
They want people fighting with other slaves. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but when shit gets so bad, it's like, what can you do but get in the mud with them, you know?
Incredibly misleading because of reasons we'll discuss. But I guess let's start at the beginning. What is this CAS review, this CAS report? Who is Dr. Hillary?
Erin Reed, isn't she the person who said she believed Blair White was actually cis because she's a Republican? I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me.
CAS and what's happening as it relates to this study.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It is 2020, and the anti-trans hysteria was sort of on the rise in England. We got to see people like
anti-trans hysteria already.
J.K. Rowling come out against transgender people, and we got the very first indications of that. Meanwhile, turfism sits trans exclusionary.
We're talking about J.K. Rowling, who was not involved in making the CAS report.
Radical feminism, a form of radical feminism that excludes transgender people, which has a very strong strain in the UK, is growing there. And we start to see waitlists get...
Yeah, in general, I wish that I could like do trans women's like eyebrows and stuff for them because they need it. Like, I'm not saying mine are perfect, they're probably not, but I don't know. Some of us are working with what we got, you know.
Much higher for trans people in the country. We start to see teens and adults even have 5-year wait lists to obtain care. So it was under this politicized environment with the Minister of Equality, with the we saw the Prime Minister at the time as well, started saying that we should just stop giving trans youth care. We should stop this. We don't want this. And so NHS England tapped Dr. Hillary Cass to do a review. And this review was selecting a certain number of experts, quote unquote, that were not actually experts on trans care.
Experts, quote unquote. By the way, any actual experts we have on like trans care are like almost guaranteed to be incredibly like ideologically captured, incredibly pro the thing that they happen to be an expert in. Funnily enough, wonder why they might have thought there was a bias there, but sure.
And in fact, it excluded anybody who had any sort of expertise in dealing with trans people.
So we haven't said a word about what the actual review is, and we're already come out with excuses as to why it's bad.
Specifically, and it was designed to do so. And over the course of 4 years...
Yeah, it was designed to do something. This is complete conspiracy theory. Erin Reed has not spoken to anyone that's made it, probably. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But it's just complete conspiracy bullshit.
Started to get study leaks that this report was going to come out eventually and that it was going to be targeted at transgender people. Now, it was said...
Targeted at transgender people. Am I making my point clear? This person is a fucking hack, piece of shit, propagandist. And this is the person that wrote that.
They're not.
Oh my god, alleged rapist, please shut up. Anyway, Jesus. So that's who wrote this article. By the way, we're in the first sentence straight away. It's like only 1% of transgender youth receiving gender affirming care at a clinic. Like straight away we're going to the stuff that they want to focus on. It's like she doesn't give you any time.
Successfully determined. So in previous instances where studies have been done on whether people are detransitioning after they start transition. The one study, the 80% study that everybody points to, had a lot of people just drop out of the study halfway through, but the people who were conducting the study just counted those as desisters, which is like a deeply flawed methodology.
Yeah, Rose Montoya, she's also weighed in about detransition, but she's meant to be next up.
And in this instance, there were...
Oh, Meeps Music, thank you so much. Yeah, drop by whenever you want. I'm usually on like between about 2 and 7-ish British time. But as for which days, it's kind of random. But yeah, thanks for watching.
There were very few people who dropped out of the study, basically. 552 patients were studied, and 548 of them had their status confirmed in the study. It's not like, oh, a bunch of people dropped out and we're gonna just conflate that as part of our data. Like, no. If you're enjoying this video, hit the like button, maybe subscribe, hit all. So yeah, this study is gonna be the one that we go back to and keep citing over and over again.
Yeah, we finally found one that's advantageous, so we need to keep... I don't know whether she means to be, like, outing the strategy here, but that's what's going on. It's pretty transparent.
Again, it's the most compelling study right now on the low detransition rates. The study...
It's the most compelling if you're interested in how low the detransition rates can be. God, it is so obvious what this person's doing. Like, fuck me. I don't think I can watch this and be like, oh, this person's getting misled by Aaron Reed's fucking journalism. I think there's more to it than that.
We examined every patient who attended the clinic from 2014 to 2020. Out of 995 referred patients, 552 had their records closed by 2022. For these closed records, researchers determined the reasons by examining medical databases to ascertain if patients continued to adult care. Okay, so yeah, so it's like you're getting trans-related care at the child place, the Perth Gender Diversity Service for the Youth Gender Clinic in Perth. So if you stop going, if your records are closed, then that's either because you aged out and you are now in the adult system, or because you desisted, or in the case of, there were 4 cases where they were unable to find a reason why the account was closed. So that's a very low loss to follow-up, which refers to the portion of the data set that could not actually be collected when following up with patients who did not respond when contacted. The vast majority of the records were closed because they were transferring to adult services. Only 29 patients re-identified with...
God, you can't see the description, but one of the lines is also quite telling. It's confirmation that over 95% of trans youth persistently identify as transgender. I don't know how it's going to confirm that over 95% of them persistently identify when 5% were the ones desisting, first off. Second off, I don't think this is really how we talk about studies. We don't look at a study that says something and we say that confirms that this shit. Yeah, I don't know. Wow, I'm a DGGer and I play RuneScape. Fuck off, mate, no shot. Is this real? Chat, is this real? Well, I don't know many Destiny-isms. I need to think of some. Maybe I will. I don't know. Gotcha. Anything else?
Their sex at birth, and of those, only 2 did so after the mental health assessment and commencement of gender-affirming medical care. So of 2 didn't re-identified because they were transferring to adult services, only 29 patients re-identified with their sex at birth, and of those, only 2 did so after the mental health assessment and commencement of gender-affirming medical care.
I thought that 29 was what she said was 2. Yeah, we gotta be careful. I like Destiny, but he's built like Cyrax. Is Cyrax also short? I'm not sure. Being that I'm not into guys really, like sexually, it's hard for me to say. Like, I don't have to worry about finding someone like Destiny attractive, so yeah. I think a recent study suggests the opposite. Only 5% end up as transsexuals. Yeah, I don't know. These things get fucking propagandized to hell and back. People that are what you might call anti-trans will focus on the ones with the worst looking numbers. People that are like this, that are very pro-trans, they'll focus on ones like these where the numbers are better for them. That's just how it is. And, you know... People are supposed to make sense of this somehow. Like, the cast review is honestly, like, fucked either way, you know? Like, whichever side it came out favorable to, the other side are just going to completely disavow it and completely propagandize it around it, should I say. And there's just nothing we can do about that.
So of more than 500 patients, 2 of them start...
I'm a transbian. I don't like calling myself a transbian, but yeah, I guess. I don't know. If you've lost all respect for me now, then I understand. Like, imagine Destiny if he was exposed massive doses of radiation in utero forever after. I'm not sure if I want to be honest.
Started medical care and then decided to stop taking it. 27 of them found out during the screening process that they did not want medical care, and they closed their account there. But like the remaining 500 plus people seemed to just go on to continue medical care into their adulthood. This study does not look at regret. Like they did not look at the
I gotta say, why would you look at fucking Erin in the Morning's account of this and not just look at the actual study? I'm not sure. Like, I can't trust any fucking media outlet with these kind of things. I'd rather look at them myself. But hey, I don't know. These people all know each other probably. Yeah.
reasons for detransition or desistance. They, could not ascertain whether any of those who returned to an identification with their sex at birth later pursued adult gender affirming care.
And by the way, it was something like 2014 till 2020, and then at 2022 was when they followed up with them. So as for the current status of any of these people now, we don't really know. Who knows if a bunch of them didn't come out as detransitioners after that.
It would be unclear. Also, the extent to which family pressure influenced the decision to re-identify with sex assigned at birth is uncertain, because they were just looking at the accounts closing. Like, they basically just looked at, okay, all the patients at this one gender clinic, okay, those who closed their records, let's look at the reasons why they were closed. That's what the study.
I'm almost tempted to... No, you know why? Fuck it. Maybe I'll find this, whole thing and, like, find the actual study and see what in what way fucking Erin in the Morning is playing fast and loose with the truth. There might not be at all, because, it isn't really in lying, it's about pushing things a certain way. There is no way that the rate of dissatisfaction is lower than any regular surgery. We're going to listen to someone who's going to claim that.
Is. Like, they don't have a lot of extra detail. It's just like, why did this person stop seeking care at this clinic? Overwhelming majority just aged out and started getting healthcare at the adult clinic. Anyway, it's good to have such compelling evidence, like really well done research showing that in, a country around the world is doing the same, look, an English speaking country with ostensibly.
It's really good research. According to someone who I think we can agree has got a horse in this race. They've picked a side, shall we say. If it was the same methodology that came out with less fortunate numbers, would this person be saying the same thing? I personally don't think so. I don't know them personally, so I could be wrong. But yeah,
possibly a lot of Christian people who live there. Like, that's kind of a feature of a lot of people, like places with a lot of white people in them.
Why are we talking about Christians and white people? Did I fucking accidentally skip half the video?
Well done research showing that in, a country around the world is doing the same thing. Look, an English speaking country with ostensibly a lot of Christian people who live there. Like, that's kind of a feature of a lot of people, like places with a lot of white people in them. And look, like I don't know, are you going to try to claim that this is a global, like, contagion?
No, I think that was just random id poll, probably to satiate their followers who like that kind of shit. I don't know. I don't see the point. I don't know why people talk like this, but when we're white, we're obsessed with other white people. And by the way, almost all of these people are white. Like, you just don't see that many of these fucking queers that are like black or Latin or fucking Asian or whatever. It's mostly white people. So we can shit on white people all we want, but we're shitting on ourselves.
And that
my FTM friend always mentions the Christians as the main enemy of the trans people. Yeah, I get that as well. It's not really that much of a thing here in the UK because we're just not that religious. But there is a sense in which I understand it, because like some kinds of Christians can be very hostile. But I think, I don't know, we like generalizing and shitting on groups of people just as much as we claim other people like doing it to us, Oikophobia, I don't know what that means. Oh, there's a lot of issues with trying to find out that number. Surgeons will cut you off if you say something bad. Yeah, this kind of shit. You're a Brit too. Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, this kind of thing, I don't know. The propaganda is being laid on pretty thick.
Transgenderism is a global culture.
Well, no, it's not a global thing. It's a fucking Western thing. It's all white people.
Thing. I don't know.
No, I don't know either, because what you said is wrong. You're literally straw manning with a wrong argument that anyone could tell you is wrong. It's a fucking Western thing. It's like white people.
But these kids are getting the medical care, and they're doing well, and then they're staying on the medical care. They're persistent.
Supposedly. We don't know anything about whether they're doing well. We don't know whether them persisting in these these identities is good for them. We don't know how many of these people are going to persist, get surgery, and then 10 years later then regret it because it's still too soon for that. So it's all very well celebrating the results of something like this when it's an ongoing thing. Like, these people's lives is going on anyway. I have no... Oikophobia is the opposite of xenophobia, basically. Oh, okay, I understand. Yeah, I have no reason to think that this person knows any of the people that were being studied on. She doesn't know any of these people, as far as I can tell. She's not like she's Australian herself. But hey, there's enough. The fact that Erin in the morning highlighted the favorable numbers of this one, we should celebrate it. It means it must be going well, even though we really don't know what these people's lives are all about. Fear of whitey, okay, yeah. There's a lot of self-hating white people out there. I will try my best not to be one of them, because I just don't see the point. I think you can absolutely be racist towards white people, and I actually have experienced racism myself, which is always a fun one to bring out whenever some fucking loser tells me that I'm privileged because I'll never experience racism. It's like, actually, it wasn't the biggest racism ever, but it still happened, so fuck it. Anyway, Luxander, where were we?
They stick with it. So whether you believe, people...
They stick with it, according to this study that checked in on them in 2022. You see, it's difficult to make that claim now. We don't know where these people are now. We don't know how happy they are. Why is this fucking suicide rate so high, if that's the case, you know? There's a whole lot of problems with what this person is saying.
Can't actually change their sex. Like, I don't think that any of us really care at the end of the day. Our experience of our sex in our bodies is dramatically different. So if you want to keep asserting something that you have never personally experienced, that's fine. But like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you want to objectively call us male or female or whatever. You know, I mean, it matters in the sense that you're trying to restrict our rights based on that definition.
Is everyone trying to restrict your rights? I don't know what rights they're even talking about. Like, we talk about this so, like, vaguely. I thought this person was meant to be smart, by the way. I'm not blown away.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, we're just going to do our thing. And the medication...
So she's speaking, I guess, for herself and all the people in this study who she doesn't know, as far as I can tell. That's cool. I don't know. You know, this person, I believe, is FTMTF or something. I don't know. I don't really keep up with this kind of thing. I'm vaguely aware of this person existing. I don't really have many opinions on them other than they seem like another queer person who's kind of ideologically captured. Evidence being that they're very excited about a study that has favorable numbers, and that they look at Erin Reed, who I think if you're anywhere open-minded, you probably shouldn't be looking at fucking Erin Reed. Except to understand how propaganda works when applied to trans groups specifically. It's a bit like expecting truth and facts from like Steven Crowder or some shit.
Helps. Like, going on hormones helps. It just makes our brains feel better. Lots of people start hormones and they're just like,
ooh, we're making so many generalizations. Oh no, it doesn't look like you're on testosterone anymore. You sound like you used to be though. The conclusions being brought here are insane. I don't know why she is saying any of this shit. This is mad.
Wow, I suddenly don't feel like kind of dissociated all the time. I had this vague feeling of crappiness and now I don't have it. And then as the changes start to happen, the physical changes, like growing a beard or growing boobs or whatever, that is like an extra bonus benefit that we get to celebrate. But mostly it's just that feeling of oneness in your body. The medication works.
I mean, my experience wasn't that. Maybe I felt a bit better. I don't know. By the time I started getting more cynical about stuff like this, it was like very much too late, but I'm not regretful anyway. So if it turns out that I'm just some weird man who's got traumatized on something and whatever, then maybe that's it. It's on 1.5 because I do want to get through some of these.
By and large, overwhelmingly, the medication works. We've tried to do...
Overwhelmingly, the medication... Well, what are you talking about? What are you basing this on? If you're basing this on this study, then you are... This isn't a fucking stretch. This is fucking flinging yourself. I don't know. That was terrible. Whatever.
Psychotherapy. That was the first thing that modern medicine tried to do, was to analyze this as a psychological phenomenon. And you can give people tools to deal with distress, but why would you do that if you can just give them something that resolves the distress? You know what I mean?
That resolves it, does it though? Is this based on this study still? I don't understand. Like, look how excited they're getting. Like, you need to chill. fuck me, this is like watching the TERFs fucking celebrating because the fucking cast review came out. It's like, you need to chill a bit. Fucking hell.
And then trans people start going to therapy instead of
Oh, the chances of what? Sorry, I think I missed what you were referring to.
dealing with our dysphoria. We go to deal with all of the crappy ways that people treat us because of our trans status. They literally claim that there's a global conspiracy among every major medical organization and research journal to push transgenderism.
Who's they? Who are you applying this to who it doesn't apply to? How do you deal with people that just have questions and aren't actually transphobic and actually want to understand this shit better? Because most trans people are extremely hostile to that kind of thing. They don't want to educate people, but they want to be understood anyway, I guess. But then I guess they just want people to read Erin in the morning and believe everything she fucking says.
Yes, well, you see, they have, oh, I don't know, whatever. I'm not even going to pretend to say something right-wing right now. I don't have the energy to be funny. I think one of those strongest things about...
Mate, you just said they. I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. I don't fucking know. This person's doing my head in. This is pretty... What's the word I'm looking for? This is pretty, I'm drawing a blank on a really good word that... Not inappropriate. Fuck. It's not good that she's doing this. We're jumping to conclusions on a study confirms that over 95% of trans youth persistently identify as transgender. This is not how we look at fucking studies. You don't look at one study and say, oh, this confirms that 95% no. Because you have to look at all the studies and, you know, understand why there's differences between them and understand the methodology and shit like that. Instead, it's like, okay, this one study came out. Okay, that means that this amount regrets it. Great. There we go. That's not how you fucking read studies.
This particular study is that they got to look at all this follow-up, that there were very few cases where they didn't know the reason, because...
Yeah, now need to be dispassionate with the science. I agree with that. I try and be dispassionate about most things, if I'm honest. Seems easier that way, but I don't know.
Another thing that these gender criticals and TERFs will claim, they'll claim that the very high success rate of...
These gender criticals and TERFs.
...transition is a false number because the people who regret it are too ashamed and too upset to actually...
Yeah, how many of them killed themselves, by the way? We're never going to know that number. Do they get brought into the fucking detransition number or not? Because ultimately we don't know, because they're not here to ask.
Go in and report their regret. Like, so there's this idea that the information is skewed. But look at this, you know, we only have 4 cases out of almost 550 that were...
Yeah, in one study. Oh my God. Fuck me, this is irritating me now. This is not how you look at data. This is terrible. Like, people watching this are gonna be looking at this kind of shit, being like, yeah, this person is like, this person's on board, it must be good. This is a person with 35k subscribers. Like, Jesus Christ, could you... I don't know. I know exactly what word I want to use to describe this person in terms of what they're doing here. And it's not coming to my mind. It's driving me insane. It's incredibly something. I don't want to say harmful because I hate the word harmful. But yeah, it's not good. She should not be doing this. This is inappropriate. There's another word that's better than inappropriate that I can't think of right now.
We could not confirm why they closed the account.
It's unethical as well. It's still not the word, but unethical. The 2 main problems are what is being done to them and what they're doing to the extent it causes suffering. Insidious. It is a little bit insidious, to be honest, because I know this person's pushing an agenda, so...
Most of them went on to go to the adult health...
But the thing is, I'm trying not to just harp on about, oh, this is your agenda and this is what you think and stuff. It's more about, well, these are the issues with the way that you're, like, reading this thing, you know? So, like, I don't know. I try to refrain from pointing out the agenda shit too much because it just goes back and forth. Like, I get shit about that constantly. I'm hoping Pissottle is here so that I can get them to explain themselves for all the shit they were pulling earlier and yesterday. But hey, I don't know.
Care. At least in the time that they were at that clinic, they were consistent and persistent with their genders, which is true for most people who have gender dysphoria. So yeah, here we go.
Is it? It's true for most people who have gender dysphoria. Source on that? What's the source, please? Oh, it's the same fucking article. I don't know. In something. I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if it's like an aphasia thing or something, but like just sometimes there'll be a word that just will not come to my head. Even a word that I use regularly, so I don't know.
just proof that, you know, overwhelmingly, it's not because people are dropping out of the studies. It's not because people are too ashamed to say that they regret.
You can't say it's not because of these things. It's because of these things when you've looked at one study. Like, fuck me. Yeah, the word I'm thinking of means a similar thing to inappropriate, as in like dangerous, bad. Like it's bad that this person's doing this. It's reckless. What's another word for reckless? I bet that will tell me. Ill-advised, that's a good one. This is ill-advised. It's ill-advised to read one study and then make those kind of claims based on it. Definitely. I don't know. I'll remember at some point. But this isn't a good thing to do. You're leading your potentially young and impressionable audience down a certain path, and you're filling people's heads with shit. We're watching what is like indoctrinating so many fucking trans people in real time right now. Like, this Erin Reed fucking person is everywhere. You get like people like Vorsh will use her as a source, and she's terrible. Like, awful. It's like sourcing Steven Crowder on something, as far as I'm concerned.
Just don't have that much regret with these medical procedures. They just don't. Oh, yeah.
They just don't, based on, oh my God, I'm going to keep repeating myself. This is extremely messed up, and you should not be doing this. This is, like, terrible. What are you doing? How old are you? How did you not learn that this is not the way you talk about these kind of things? This isn't the way you talk about studies. This isn't the way you come to conclusions based on studies. Like, what other studies have you even looked at? You're just talking about this one and saying, there you go, fucking Perth, 552 people, that's representative of a whole group, right? It's not a global thing. No one said it was. It's a fucking Western thing, but sure. Whatever we have to say to shit on people that don't think the same way as us and might have questions about this kind of thing. Well, no, slap a study in front of you. Well, they can just slap a study in front of you that doesn't say the same thing that that study does. So yeah. And by the way, if I get another study that counters this, that suggests that the numbers are higher, I shouldn't then be like making huge claims about how many people like regret it necessarily, because I don't know. I've looked at one study. It's the same both ways.
This is just more proof on a massive pile of existing proof. But I'm just saying, with other studies...
More proof on a oh my God. Proof of what? It's never going to prove anything, for one thing, because their lives are still going on. We don't know how many of them will like kill themselves because they regret it. We don't know how many people will ultimately detransition because they regret it. We don't know a lot of things, and this person is claiming they do. I think I maybe... Yeah, I'm a bit sick of this. I don't need to watch the disgusting fucking... Look at this. List of Patreons for this utter hack. That's right. Listen, Luxander, you're a hack. This is a terrible video. You are... Do I know Tom is fair? Yes, Tom Tent. Whatever his actual name is. Tom Tent. Sassafras. That shit. Yeah. Strange fucking guy. He's like hilarious when he's stressed, though. I'll give him that. Like... Watching stressed Tom is I don't know. It's funny. Like, when these people like lie about everything, they always get found out. It's like, just don't lie. You know, when I go around saying I was a letting agent for 5 years, that actually happened in my life. You know, why would you lie about that? More to the point, like, no one likes fucking letting agents. But yeah, like, linguistic marketing, wasn't it? He was the first one to do mobile detailing of people's cars, i.e. showed up to people's houses and like washed their cars. Oh, I do like a bit of Tom Tent. Bringing up statistics as transphobic race. Yeah, there's always going to be people saying that shit. To them I say, okay, I'm going to talk about it anyway, because I am trans. Anyway, let's hear what a supposed rapist said about detransitioning a year ago. This person is Rose Montoya. She is also very ideologically captured. Not necessarily to be trusted not necessarily to be trusted either way. Has been accused of doing very bad things with other trans people, specifically trans men. So yeah, nice.
I would like to genuinely ask, where did you get these numbers? Because they're not...
So, yep, 1 and 80% of them detransition because of external factors. So the line generally is most of the detransition is detransition because of transphobia or something like that. I don't know. This feels a bit... We're going to argue with this number? This feels like they're, like, supporting trans people, right? Never trust a person with lips like that. Yeah, I agree. Like, Jesus, that's like some hot dog stuff going on there. You're the only person that can really speak on it from a certain perspective credibly to a certain audience. Yeah. She transitioned her dog. Yeah, she said her dog was trans. I did do a reaction to someone like... Fuck, what was it? I can't remember now. There was someone talking about like dogs and gender identity. It was completely ridiculous. I don't know why I didn't upload it actually. It was kind of hilarious, but like the channel itself for the most part was just like dog training and seemed perfectly okay. So I think I felt a bit mean, not meme. She transitioned to, yeah, I saw that. AGP. I think she goes for like boys, so I don't think she's an AGP. They're normally into other women.
Factual at all. One of the most recent studies done by UCLA Williams Institute School of Law shows that there's around 1 to 2% of the population that identifies as transgender, at least in the United States. And in one of the most recent studies done by the Pediatrics Medical Journal, with a study of over 300 transgender...
I get major AGP vibes from Blair White and this person from the bimbo transition. See, Blair White comes across like she's always been like massively gay. Blair White is HSTS. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like she didn't really voice train or anything. Like I've met plenty of guys that would have been just like pre-transition like Blair White, because I met a fair amount of gay guys in my life. Like I definitely get more of the gay vibes from her. Like the way she talks and shit is like she's been gay, you know, a long time. She was a gay guy, you know. I don't know so much about Rose Montoya, but I think they're gay as well.
Individuals across the United States and Canada, only 2.5% of transgender kids detransition.
Where is that from? Like she's very conveniently sitting in... Excuse me. She's very conveniently sitting in front of it, so I don't know where those numbers come from, but okay.
2.5% of them detransition. But 3.5% of those kids retransition. In the
5 years later, 9.4%, 94%. I don't know.
2015 US Transgender Survey, out of 28,000 people, only 0.4% detransitioned permanently. And the leading cause for detransition...
I think she just reads things and immediately believes them, I'm guessing. I mean, it's possible, but I'm just being shown some text with this woman in front of it, so I can't read it properly, and being told that that's correct, so I don't know.
Transitioning in all of these surveys was that the individual did not feel supported by society or their family or their friends or their jobs, etc. So yes, I think it's much more important.
You can never fit the difference between the bottom of Blair's nose and the top of her lip. I'm gonna have to have a look at some point. I don't know. I watch her stuff occasionally, and it's a coin toss as to whether I'm going to agree with her or not, because I tend to agree with her like trans community kind of takes and stuff. I've had similar experiences. I tend to disagree with her politically, so.
To show support for transgender people than to ridicule them. Looking at other studies from reputable medical journals, transgender individuals who are not shown support in their transitions...
What's a reputable... She's not going to say, is she? A philtrum. Is that what that's called?
Support for transgender people than to ridicule them. Looking at other studies from reputable medical journals.
What does she call a reputable medical journal?
Transgender individuals who are not shown support in their transitions end up at alarming rates having self-harm, depression, or even attempting to unalive themselves. An average of 14% of transgender people attempt to, and upwards of 51% of transgender men have attempted to unalive themselves because of the lack of support.
We're not going to get told what this this trustworthy source is. I know.
It's time to believe transgender people.
Is the philtrum this bit? Like that bit? Is that what that is?
When they tell you who they are, and it's time to
believe trans people when they say who they are. Like, notice the last bit was not about detransition whatsoever. It's just about, you know, Here's why you should affirm everyone, I guess. You can if you want. You don't have to. I don't know.
To show us love and support. Humans deserve basic human decency and respect. Humans deserve to live, and children deserve to grow up into become.
How much of their face she covers with their hair. I cannot talk. Like, I don't know. My head shape is unfortunate.
Becoming adults, whether they be trans or not.
So that, as far as I can tell, was just an excuse to push whatever the moral was at the end. Cool. I don't know. So far, I don't know, we've got... We pick and choose studies, and we just want you to believe what we call reputable. We don't want cis people to have any opinions of their own, because that would be bad. Not Jamie. She came out with a video called... Because here's the weird thing. Yeah, I'm really sorry. This is a big one. I did a video, I've done 2 videos covering her stuff. The first one was the most shockingly awful video I've ever seen in my life, and I couldn't finish it. The second one made some references to detransitioners that she treats. And to me, it felt like she's skewing the data, because to me, some of the people she refers to as in being like trans people who kind of retransitioned, who stopped taking, say, estrogen, but still have like non-binary identity and shit like that. I don't know how much I'd call that a detransitioner. I think that's a completely different thing. And by the way, Dr. Jamie is with WPATH. Comes up a lot in extremely ideologically captured channels, Twitter profiles, that kind of thing. It's getting to the point where I see WPATH, I start questioning them straight away. Anyway, this is transgender psychiatrist reviews. Regret after gender-affirming surgery compared to other surgeries.
Hey, it's Dr. Jamie.
Oh yeah, I forgot her audio is shocking. I can't believe that someone would skew or fake data like a Harvard uni.
Pronouns are she or they. I'm an associate clinical professor of psychiatry. I am a researcher, and I'm somebody who works in the space of gender-affirming care. Welcome back to my channel.
But she works for WPATH, so keep that in mind.
So I recently came across this article in the American Journal of Surgery titled A Systemic Review of Patient Regret After Surgery, a Common Phenomena in Many Specialties but Rare Within Gender-Affirming Surgery. So, there is a lot of misinformation out there about transgender healthcare and regret rates. There is what I would call a very small but very vocal group.
I have to look into that at some point. I don't know much about the Harvard stuff you're saying about. Hey, listen, if any of it turns out to be like around this kind of shit, then that could be quite huge for me, so.
It seems to like to talk about their regrets with regard to their gender-affirming practices, but I think it's important to keep this in context to other, for example, plastic surgery procedures, other elective procedures, and other major life decisions. And that's what this article does, which I think is really cool.
I'm going to guess straight off the bat that there's going to be no, what's the word I'm looking for? Fuck me. I'm not good at it. I'm not doing well today. There's going to be no acknowledgement of how politicized this whole thing is, and so how difficult it is to actually understand any of this shit anymore. Just look up Harvard data fraud. Fair enough. I'll have a look at some point.
I will put a link to it in the description below. It is not open access, but the abstract is available.
Enjoy the ad revenue.
All right, so the introduction. In the US, there's about 1.3 million adults who identify as transgender or gender diverse, or TGD. From 2015 to 2019, interest in gender-affirming surgery, or GAS, have increased by approximately 400%.
Gas. Love it. 400%. I wonder if there's any, why is it like that? Who knows? Not like it's trendy or something. It's not like, whatever.
With improvements in access to care and insurance coverage. I know that's something that really happened for me. I was able to get care because my insurance covered it. And, the other thing is that there is this like better language to describe gender diversity now. I had gender dysphoria.
I guess gender diversity is there being queers and shit like that around. I don't know. People call themselves different things now. That's about as much as I can understand from it. And I find that when I try and understand more, I don't, no one, no one wants to help me out. So it's like, okay, I'll just not understand forever then, I guess. You can ask me patronizing questions about whether my partner knows that I have certain beliefs that you think I have about non-binary people, because my partner's non-binary. Yeah, no one does call it GAS. That's fucking weird.
Since I was like 12, but it wasn't until my 30s that I really had the language to describe my non-binary sort of trans feminine.
Because this person is non-binary and trans. That's why they're she, they. I don't know what that means, except for that you change your sex. You change certain things about yourself to become more like the other sex. And you use weird pronouns that no one uses because everyone's just going to call you a she unless they call you a he.
Experience. All right. So while there is high satisfaction with gender-affirming surgery, a small but vocal minority experience regret after their procedures. And sadly, some of these individuals are often elevated by anti-trans activists.
See, this is an interesting one. Like, that's a really like suspicious way of putting it, because here's the thing, like, these kinds of people, maybe she does professionally, but like these sort of more left kind of trans people, they never seem to talk to any of these detransitioners. They never seem to talk about them in any way other than to say how few of them there are. None of them ever like try uplifting any of these people themselves unless they agree with literally everything that the mob says, So like, these people very much get forced towards the other side because they have these kind of questions that the trans community aren't going to fucking answer, because the trans community are bad enough with people like me who are like happy enough that they transition but don't really like the community because of insane amounts of shit fucking experiences with them. Like, how do you think it's like with someone who's literally turned around on the whole thing and said, no, the whole thing is like completely wrong for me? So yeah, like, these people get thrown under the bus, and it's kind of gross to even mention it quite often because he's literally doing that here,
And organizations. So regret after gas is complex, but often associated with things like
She needs to stop calling it gas. Call it literally anything else. Come on.
Unrealistic expectations, complications, unsatisfactory results, ongoing social stigma and discrimination, and inadequate social support. So notice that not a lot of this has to do with, like, for example, figuring out that somebody is not trans, for example. That's very, very rare.
Unrealistic expectations, unsatisfactory results, yeah,
That somebody would later not identify as transgender. All right. So what's the major question that the study is asking? So how do rates of regret after gas compare to rates of regret within plastic surgery, other surgical subspecialties, and other major...
Yeah, I know. She needs to stop calling it gas. Like, is that a term in the US? They don't call it gas in this country.
Major life decisions.
It's like SRS or something like that. I don't know. As far as I can tell, this is kind of a paid shill. She works with WPath, which is not great.
So the way that they conducted the study is they did a systemic review of 3 databases. These are like the major scientific databases, PubMed, Scopus, and Web of Science. And they were looking specifically at studies that looked at regret after common plastic surgery operations, and then 3 separate literature reviews.
Something weirdly intimate. I don't know. You're going to have to explain that one.
On regret after gender-affirming surgery was conducted, regret after elective operations, and regret after major life decisions. All right. So we'll go through the different categories. So
I'm sorry. The percentage of regret ranged from 0 to 47.1%. That's quite a big difference. Like, oh my God. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm supposed to take any of this, like, seriously. I don't know.
First, we'll look at plastic surgery regret. So there was 55 articles examining regret after plastic surgery that were included in the...
Oh, it's the fetish voice. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, trans people. I think maybe there's, like, different categories of, like, trans voice, such as the didn't even try, where they sound even worse than me, and then the kind of... the one where the doctor will see you now, and it's, yeah. That's this kind, I think.
Analysis, the percentage of patients reporting regret ranged from 0% to as high as 47.1%. For example, breast augmentation study showed a regret rate between 5.1 to 9.1%. Studies looking at body contouring, the regret rate was about 10.82 to 33.3%. That might just be 10.8%. And then breast reconstruction, regret rates range from 0% all the way up to 47.1%. There were other procedures included in this.
Yeah, that's such a wild, like, difference. Like, doesn't it suggest that the way that we measure regret is not ideal? I don't know.
These are just some examples. All right, so what about...
I do see what you mean. I don't want to say that I think that myself. But yeah, I don't know. There's something... I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. I don't want to say something about this person, you know. Not like I already have, but whatever.
About other elective surgical procedure regret. So bariatric surgery, pretty common surgery nowadays. Regret rate range from 1.9 to 19.5%. It's pretty high. Tubal ligation, 5.9 to 28% regret rate. Something as simple as hernia repair, right? Ventral.
What causes someone to regret something like a hernia repair, for example? Like, I don't know. Hang on, I need to look some of these up because I don't know what a couple of these mean. Bariatric. Is that weight loss? Bariatric surgery. Yes, weight loss surgery. I'm a genius. Okay. So, regret. I think you can imagine what weight loss surgery regrets you'd have. Often people can't eat as much as they used to be able to. Tubal ligation. I need to know now. So blocking, clipping, or removing the fallopian tubes. So basically the female version of fuck, what is it? The snip. Fuck, what do they call it? I'm doing terribly today. The thing men get down there, getting their tubes tied, sterilizing oneself. It's a bit like getting the wire cut down there so that you can't have kids anymore. I knew a guy who got these like cut and stitch tattoos because like he got snipped down there and then got it reversed so he could have more kids. So he got like tattoos commemorating it, and he'd like tell people if people asked one. If they asked like what they were and stuff. Strange guy. He was married to his cousin as well.
Hernia repair, 11% regretted it. Inguinal hernia repair, 9%. What about colectomy for diverticulitis, which is removal of a piece of the colon? 32% regretted that elective procedure. All right, so here are some
life decisions. How are we gonna like compare any of this to fucking gas or whatever we're calling it now? I don't know.
Major life decisions that they looked at and the regret associated with those. So having children, so 7 to 13% of people who have children later state they regretted that. Up to 16.2%.
Do I know what muffing is? I do not.
Of people who get a tattoo say they regret it. And between 23 and 31% of people later say they regret getting married. So again,
I don't know. I'm still trying to decide if I should be giving these people ad revenue, but at the moment I'm pretending to be like ethical or something. I don't know. I'd get all kinds of weird shit on here.
Very high percentages for some pretty significant life decisions, especially having children and getting married.
But how are we gonna like compare any of that shit to gas here? We're calling it gas. This is being normalized now. It's gonna be a meme. I don't know. A few reported feeling non-binary and no longer feeling satisfied. I have a feeling she'd have put all this together. I don't trust a single fucking thing, quite honestly. There's a website. Jamie Agapoff. Is that her name? Agapoff. Yeah, and on the top it says the writings of James Agapoff. Agapoff. Oh my god, papyrus. Sorry, I'll stop looking at this in a sec. Buddhist principles, trans psychiatrist answers, the queer agenda. I want to know what the queer agenda is. Holy shit. Jamie Agapoff. I don't like that name as a Jewish person. Is that like a Jewish name? I don't know. Oh god. Okay, so rights isn't pie. Doesn't mean fewer rights for you. This is a fucking... What is it? It's a cliche. I don't know. Last gender queer, increasingly on the defensive. These policies amount to a quiet genocide. Fuck me, we're like one paragraph in. Sought to erase the LGBTQIA people from public life. Series of laws and policies. Like, really? Fuck me. Anti-drag bills, queer expression, queer. No, it's what they used in the showers in the camp. Jesus fuck. Yeah, this is bought and paid for as fuck. This is shill shit is what this is.
So what about gender affirming surgery? So I'm going to look at some very specific studies that were included in the sample because I really think they highlight with consistency the low regret rate. So this particular study by Webchus et al. Was included. It's from 2018. It actually included 6,793 patients. That's a lot. So 4,432 were assigned male at birth and transitioned in the feminine.
Oh, this isn't the Dutch protocol. I thought it might have been. I don't know. How am I supposed to trust any of this? The problem is this person has got appeal to authority on her side. She works with WPATH, medical doctor and psychiatrist. None of that means shit if you're dishonest. Gender researcher who specializes in gender affirming care. So the obvious thing should be, well, I know more than you. I know that this is correct and you don't know this is correct. I know that you're bought and paid for, so I don't know any of this is correct. So, hey.
Direction and 2,361 were assigned female birth and transitioned in the masculine direction. So this was done at a specifically at a gender clinic in Amsterdam, and the data ranges from 1972 to 2015. And they found that only 0.6% of trans women and 0.3% of trans men reported regretting their gender affirming surgery. Reasons that were included loss of family, job, a few reported feeling.
I feel a book burning coming on. I don't know. Maybe we need the odd book burning. I'm joking. That's a joke. Please don't take that seriously. The thing these people fail to realize is straight people aren't allowed to do it in front of kids either. Yeah.
Feeling actually non-binary and no longer feeling satisfied with their operation. There is a few things I think that are important to talk about here. So a lot of the old guidelines really encourage people to split ties with family, to get new jobs, which, as you can imagine, can be very destabilizing from a psychological.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about this study. Hey, it might be true. Maybe sexual reassignment surgery is less regrettable than having kids, but one of those things is a heck of a lot more necessary for the survival of the human race than the other. So, hey, I don't know.
Social perspective. And then many people who identify as non-binary, like myself, they had to lie to get into these programs. They had to state things that were not necessarily true about their experience. This is true in general for gender affirming procedures through the 70s, 80s, and even 90s.
Well, yeah, because if you go in being like, oh, it'd be kind of cool just to have no tits. Like, I just think my gender will be more affirmed. I'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course people are lying about this shit. And that's a huge problem with these kind of things that are pretty much based on testimony. And, trans isn't immune to it. Plenty of mental health things aren't either. I have a bunch of stuff that I can only really describe in terms of testimony. And the more we devalue people's testimonies, the more obvious we make it that if someone wants to believe they have something, they will just say they have that thing, and they will say everything it takes to convince you they have that thing, regardless of whether it's true or not. That makes it harder for people who have conditions that rely on testimony. I have something called misophonia. The only things I can do is describe what it is, or someone can see what happens when someone eats near me. And I have to hope that they don't think I'm acting and that I'm pretending to have this problem, So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this kind of thing at all.
People had to sort of follow a specific...
I assume people who lie to get in will also be willing to lie about potential regret. Absolutely. And how many people feel pressured? How many people are dealing with some kind of confirmation bias because they're in some weird fucking cult with a bunch of other trans people? There's so many things to consider.
narrative to be able to access care. When we know now that there is a huge amount of gender diversity and many different kinds of people benefit from gender affirming procedures. I think another thing to note is I know some people
benefit how? All we're showing is the lack of regret. Is that automatically a benefit? I don't really regret nor not regret most things. I don't know. I mean, if you wanted different genitalia, then okay, sure, I guess. I mean, I did the same thing myself, but is it a benefit?
We'll highlight that Amsterdam has this very strict criteria in terms of getting into these programs, and that's why they may have the low regret rate. But as I will show, the other studies in this sample.
As I will show. Are you a scientist or aren't you? I don't know. I don't like the way this person talks about studies either.
Also showed a low regret rate.
Did it? Wow. They had a low regret rate. It doesn't show that the regret rate therefore is low, 1% regret. Hey.
All right. So other studies that were included in this review included this one by Bustos et al. In 2020.
And it's really vague, what she's put out as well. You don't know what stuff is missing. I probably, not today because just fuck that shit in general, but I'd probably have to kind of go through the thing and kind of autistically pick out every detail. But it's in a way that feels like that's what people want me to do. If they can sort of lead these little trails where some of it's true and some of it isn't, and then people have to waste a shit ton of their time looking through all of it to make sure none of it's bullshit, when really the lie is kind of more subtle than that anyway. It's Jesus Christ. I feel on the one hand, I should be doing everything I can to debunk any of this shit that's not true. But on the other hand, I feel like a fucking moron for doing so. It's like when I read the cast review and stuff. I feel like a moron for doing it because I don't believe that half the people that say I don't believe that half the people that said they've read the cast review have actually fucking read it. You are disfigured and suicidal. Does it matter if you regret it? Yeah, true.
21. It was a meta-analysis, so it combined many different studies, so 27 studies, which totaled over 7,928 transgender individuals. So in this study, a third underwent transmasculine procedures and 2/3.
So all of this is very, very broad, by the way. In terms of individual methodology, etc., the quality of each study, we don't know.
Underwent transfeminine procedures, only 1% reported regret, and the most common regrets were difficulty, dissatisfaction with the new gender role, which could be attributed to minority stress and or achieving their aesthetics.
Minority stress.
Satisfaction with the new gender role, which could be attributed to minority stress.
What does minority stress mean? Is that a term? Is that a medical term? Minority stress theory. Oh, okay, great. It's another theory. That shit is not fucking theoretical enough. AI overview. Fuck it, whatever. I don't care that much about this. Minority stress theory is a hypothesis that minority groups experience stress from discrimination and stigma, which can lead to negative health outcomes. So she'll mention that. She won't mention difficulties that especially trans men, I find, seem to have with adjusting to their new gender. We watched a video. I can't remember what it was part of. There was this transgender man that was really upset because what he'd found is that he changed into a man and now he's super lonely because trying to build relationships with other men the same way you would other women is just not going to work because men just aren't socialized the same way, and that caused a lot of problems. But of course we're going to go for minority stress. I don't know, this person seems like a bullshit artist to me. Oh, that was meant to be the next video. Let's keep going.
And or achieving their aesthetic surgical goals. So this could be related to expectations or outcomes related to the surgery. Okay. So what are some of the conclusions here? So we'll go back to our question.
Yeah, by suggesting minority stress, that is a huge red flag. And I'm sure I'm the only person. If I look through don't look through these person's comments. A lot of these people are fucking insane. Find some of these stats shocking. I don't like this at all.
How do rates of regret after GAS compare to the rates of regret within plastic surgery?
Because people will just look at this and believe it straight away. They don't understand how broadened out a lot of these things are that she's talking about and how little detail she goes into in fucking the regrets of childbirth, which, like I said, one of those is a bit more important for the human race to continue than the other. In fact, the other is extremely, what is it? Antithetical. It's counterproductive to continuing the human race, but sure. Little did you know, the ruiner of transsexuals. Yeah, it turned out all she did was proposition someone to do some OnlyFans work together when they didn't really know each other, which is weird and gross. But she's not like, I don't know. I get the impression from Lily Tino that she's one of these people that probably knows where the line is and kind of toes it a lot, but doesn't really ever properly cross it. So there's always going to be all this weird shit around her, but I don't think she's ever going to do anything quite wild enough, you know? But I could be wrong. I don't know. There's a lot of trans people that like to out themselves as groomers and scammers and complete fucking liars. Here's a case in point.
Surgical.
I'm not calling her a groomer. I don't know what kind of stuff she does or if she even works with younger people. Yeah, I don't know.
Subspecialties and other major life decisions. So the regret rate for GAS is remarkably low, around 1%, compared to other plastic surgery procedures, other elective procedures, and significant life decisions. So this really highlights.
What kind of, let's say that this is true, what kind of conclusion even is this? Like, you're more likely to regret getting plastic surgery than getting sexual reassignment surgery. I would imagine that plastic surgery is a bit more like reversible in some ways. Like you get lip fillers, for example, you have to like keep getting them done. You can just get them reduced and stuff like that. It's probably a bit easier to reverse things like that to at least some extent than it is to reverse SRS, which, you know, if you get what I got done, like you're really not reversing that. You can't just get it made back into a penis again. You know what I mean? So that's a potential thing. Regret is remarkably low. I don't know. I'd need to look at the surgeries. Excuse me. I would need to look at the studies. I don't trust a thing this person says, quite frankly. She's with WPATH. That by itself is a red flag. The way she talks is a huge red flag to me. Minority stress, as opposed to all kinds of other shit, you know. That's what we're gonna go with. That's pretty cooked, honestly.
It's important to provide access in an informed consent manner to these procedures. You know, it's really, when you take a step back and you look at this, you have this group of procedures, you know, gender-affirming surgical procedures that are shown to have very high satisfaction rates, have a significant impact on improving mental health,
Does this not feel a bit like a sales pitch? Like, ugh, uncomfortable. I think I might leave that there because, I don't know. I think we get the message. We've had a couple of people that, to my mind, sound ideologically captured. I don't know that they are. I have criticisms of them despite that anyway, so it shouldn't matter. But yeah, that's the woke person line, I guess. We have an emphasis on, you know, fuck me, I'm forgetting where's left, right, and center. We have an emphasis on, you know, how small the number should be and like how small the numbers actually are, supposedly, by which we mean we kind of cherry pick statistics. And it kind of seems like, I don't know if regret is the easiest thing to measure. I don't know how truthful any people are being. I don't know. You know, the other thing is these studies, they represent like a snapshot in time. We don't know who's been in these studies that will then go on to detransition or experience regret. Like, it can hit you at any time, I'm sure. Like, hey, maybe it will me one day. I don't know. I never wanted kids myself, and that's kind of the main thing. Like, you get sterilized, right? But hey, just thinking about how the reversibility of the surgery would affect the regret rates. Yeah, it could go either way, I guess. But the thing is, it's a lot easier to regret like getting a lip filler done than getting your whole crotch like rejigged completely and turned inside out, you know? Because if you regret the second one, there's not much you can do about it. If you regret the first, there probably is. So yeah. I have one more. I don't know what kind of video this is going to be. I would hope a little more unbiased. This is someone called Dr. Yoon, who has over 5 million subscribers, so good for him. And we have Ben Shapiro versus Dylan Mulvaney. What does medical science say about transgender, gender-affirming care? So Dr. Anthony Yoon. I have no idea who this person is. They might be terrible. They might be the most base person I've ever listened to. We're gonna find out.
There's been a huge backlash against the transgender community, and specifically transgender social media star Dylan Mulvaney after they got a brand deal from Bud Light.
A beer. This was such a terrible idea. I don't know whose idea it was to put fucking Dylan Mulvaney on a beer can. Much less, you know, light beer, you know, the kind of things that it's kind of stereotypically like redneck beer, you know what I mean? I'm not shit talking it in that way, but that's kind of how it is. I don't know whose decision that was. That was so stupid.
Is now promoting itself during March Madness, a male-oriented event, by hiring a man who says he is a woman dressed as Audrey Hepburn to sell you beer.
Whether you're liberal or conservative, you probably...
I'm going to say straight away, I find Ben Shapiro very hard to take seriously when he gets like that. It is a bit too whiny. You know, during a time that's supposed to be for men, it's like right-wing snowflake shit to me, but hey.
Have some strong feelings about this. So in this video, I'm going to share with you what medical studies say about gender affirmation and transgender people, and how I, as a real doctor, a board-certified plastic surgeon, believe this...
Yeah, it's a real doctor, not a WPATH doctor, exactly.
...whole situation with transgender children and adults should be handled. Well, this is a super hot topic, and I know people have very strong opinions about transgender topics today. And so I'm going to try to handle it from a completely medical perspective. We're going to hear what the medical associations recommend, and we're going to talk about the studies that have actually looked at transgender surgery and transgender people in general. And in the end, I'm going to go on a limb and give you my opinion of this whole thing.
Listen, this video will decide the fate of whether I continue giving anyone ad revenue anymore. If this is good, I might continue. If this is terrible, I definitely won't.
Did you know that only 0.7% of the population is transgender? Well, this is a relatively tiny segment of the overall population of the United States, yet it seems like this subject is in the news every single day. Well, studies show that transgender people realize that they are transgender at an average age of only 8.5 years old. However, they don't disclose their feelings until about 10 years later on average. Now, before we go any further, I think it's important...
They realize this. I don't know about this. Shouldn't transition be judged not on regret, but success rates? How often it made the victim feel their desired gender or whatever. Maybe the reason they focus on regret is because we have a vested interest in minimizing it as much as possible. Also, it seems, I don't know, it feels really weird listening to people who never speak to like actual detransitioners who do regret the stuff that they went through, talking about it so much, but hey. That's what happens when you're a bit of a propagandist hack, you know. You make people feel weird because they understand that you're trying to do something that's not really anything to do with, you know, what you say it is.
Important for us to define two very important terms: cisgender and natal gender. You know, I think we all...
But yeah, do people know that they're trans by the time they're that age, or is it more they first started having thoughts? Because I probably first started having thoughts when I was like 6 or something, but I didn't know I was trans. I felt like I'd rather have been born a girl, you know?
Know what transgender means, but do you know what cisgender and natal gender means? Because I think it's important to this whole discussion. The term cisgender refers to people who identify, in fact, high rates of depression.
I don't need the most like obvious shit explained to me.
Anxiety, eating disorders, self-harm, and suicide. In fact, one study found 56% of youth who identify as transgender have contemplated suicide.
He's talking about youth as well, which is kind of terrifying. Like, this is the kind of thing that makes me a lot more amenable to the kinds of people who don't think that transgender stuff should be taught in schools and stuff. Because it's like, the kids are more likely to learn about this if they take on one of these transgender identities. They're now taking on this like suicide risk, surely, you know? Kate Bush, The Kick Inside. I don't know if I know that one. I know a few Kate Bush songs. I quite like her.
With 31% actually attempting suicide.
Jesus, and we're talking about youths as well. Like, it's terrifying. I don't know.
Now, this is compared to cisgendered, which is 20% and 11% comparatively. So think about it. 1 out of every 3 transgender youth have attempted suicide, and over half have considered it. I mean, these...
Can you see why some people don't want their kids anywhere around this yet? Fuck me.
These are staggering and really, really sad numbers. Now, as a parent of 2 high school-aged children, for me to think that either of them would contemplate suicide is absolutely frightening. And I think that we can all agree that we do not want our youth, whether...
I like running up that hill because I'm a basic bitch. I also like placebo and they covered it, so.
They're cisgender or transgender to be in that situation and to be so down and to have such, I guess, lack of hope that they would actually consider this type of thing. Now, some people may say that transgender people have more mental illness. Therefore, they may be more likely to contemplate suicide. So is this true? Is there evidence that transgender people have more underlying mental illness than cisgendered people?
I would guess yes, but let's see.
Well, let's see what the experts say. According to the American Psychiatric Association, being transgender or gender variant implies no impairment in judgment.
Gender variant, whatever that means. I guess that's another word for queer or something, who knows. Spicy straight.
Stability, reliability, or general social or vocational capabilities. However, these individuals often experience discrimination due to a lack of civil rights protections for their gender identity or expression. Such discrimination and lack of equal civil rights is damaging to the mental health of transgender and gender variant individuals. So, mental health
is definitely a factor, but I think, you know, I don't think it's the only thing we should always be talking about. And it feels like sometimes, I mean, that last person, literally, that's what she wanted to highlight, you know, minority stress. I don't know.
Health issues among transgender people are more the effect of multiple factors, including discrimination, instead of an underlying difference in the amount of mental illness compared to the cisgendered community. And
wait, are we talking about discrimination and then showing, like, first off, dead naming, like, I guess that's technically discriminatory. It's not the nicest thing to do. But, like,
an underlying difference in the amount of...
I mean, I don't know. I don't know why we feel entitled to sports when, if you're born male, you have potential advantages. I don't know why we feel entitled to that. When we talk about trans rights, we're usually actually talking about some pretty weird shit that not many people even want, so...
mental illness compared to the cis...
I don't buy the discrimination equals mental illness argument. Yeah, I mean, it can, you know, shit like bullying doesn't help, and I do think that, like, young trans people are probably more likely to get bullied in, like, school or whatever, because, like, I was perceived as gay, interestingly, and, like, you know, I got the shit bullied out of me. I got called, like, all kinds of things. So yeah, I can see how that kind of thing happens, but I don't think it's a good, like, overall explanation. And I think anyone trying to push it as, like, a single cause is barking up the wrong tree and is probably doing it for a reason, you know. There's probably there's probably an ideology seeping through at that point. Anyone want to bet the ban on gender affirming care was exclusively for minors not diagnosed with GD? Hang on, let's have a look.
Instead of
ACLU, which one was that? American Civil Liberties Union. GLAD is a really weird one. I don't know too many of these. I think ACLU is possibly a bit funny. I'm not sure. Oh, it's just going to conveniently not actually describe what it was. Powering healthcare for transgender people. No essential medical care for both transgender adolescents and adults. This could be literally anything.
An underlying difference in the amount of mental illness compared to the...
Listen, I know so many, like, British trans people that every time there's a new bill out in fucking Missouri or some shit, they fucking freak the fuck out, and it's pretty ridiculous. There's a certain point at which time people should probably just, like, log off and think about something else and maybe spend time with their loved ones or find something they like doing, you know.
This gendered community. And this, I think, is super, super important to realize. So is it just the psychiatrists that believe this? Well, let's see what the American Academy of Pediatrics states. They state that if a mental health issue exists, it most often stems from stigma and negative experiences rather than being intrinsic to the child.
Yeah, I think that's what I was getting at to an extent. Like, if you're, like, a trans kid, you might be more likely to be treated a certain way by your family as well. Like, I do believe it. Just Googled it. Missouri only banned medical transition for minors. Fair enough. Yeah, I kind of hate when stuff like that gets treated as, like, a big trans rights issue, because I'm not even for transitioning minors. Like, I think there's far too much risk with it. So, the mental health exists. It most often stems from stigma and negative experiences. Yeah, I know. I'm one of those people that I have, like, a mixture of shit I was born with and shit that probably did come from experiences. So, I don't know.
So transgender people aren't born with more mental illness, and mental illness...
But what he hasn't mentioned, I don't know if autism comes up here, because autistic people are more likely to become trans than non-autistic people. So it kind of suggests that there is some stuff that kind of predisposes them, but then it depends why people become transgender. It's a very difficult thing to really square, I guess, because we don't really know what causes people to become transgender.
Does not cause them to be transgender. Transgender people who suffer from mental health issues often have it due to the way they are treated in our society. Now, on top of this, youth who identify as transgender experience...
Yeah, I feel like we're a bit at odds here, but I'll keep watching.
Disproportionately high rates of homelessness, physical violence, both violence at home and violence in the community, substance abuse, and high-risk sexual behaviors. So when you take all of this into account, I think you get the picture that transgender people are facing. High-risk sexual behaviors.
So things like, I mean... Yeah, I think autistic people are more susceptible. I think with autistic people, I can only speak for myself on this, but something as a boy that was big for me was I found like gender roles, the way men are expected to be, extremely intimidating. I found the idea of being kind of the confident like leader one who kind of makes decisions, especially for a woman or whatever. Bearing in mind I grew up in the 90s. I found all that very intimidating, and I think that's probably a thing that autistic people tend to feel more often, because they just can't fit into the stereotypes, and it probably can push you to think that maybe you're the wrong gender or something. But I mean, you know, a lot of this can stem from like traumatizing events, especially the bottom one. Substance abuse is usually a coping mechanism. Like, I don't know. I don't disagree with him. I just don't know if I entirely agree with him either.
Behaviors. So when you take all of this into account, I think you get the...
Yeah, it's entirely possible that all of this is just a massive overreaction to gender roles I felt I couldn't fill. But if it is, then it's kind of... I don't really care.
The picture that transgender people are facing. It's discrimination, it's ridicule, bullying, and all of that leading to a poor sense of self-worth and even mental illness.
I mean, it's a very obvious point to say, like, if you're nicer to these people and if you don't reject your own family members because they're trans, then they're going to have a better time for sure. Like, I don't disagree with him.
That is not, I repeat, it is not a function of them being transgender. It's the result of society's lack of empathy and care for them as individuals. And studies show that this starts at home. In fact, one study looked at 433 transgender adolescents in Ontario, and they found that the suicide attempt rate was 4% when having supportive parents, and as high as 60% when parents weren't supportive.
Obviously, you know, let's see what the cis version of that is. Fuck me, I'm dying. Having supportive parents is always going to be way preferable to having unsupportive parents, you know. But it definitely affects people. You know, the kind of rejection that trans people get because they're trans, like, it definitely does affect it.
We must do better than that. So how should we treat children who are possibly transgender? Well, research shows that children who are prepubertal, meaning ages 5 to about 12, and they identify as transgender, they know their gender as clearly as their peers who identify as cisgender, and they benefit from the same level of social acceptance.
I didn't like that conclusion. Like, I don't know if cis people, cis kids or whatever, would say they understand their gender in the same way. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the study for that. I'm not sure. I'm firing blanks right now. This whole segment is wearing me out a little bit with all the fucking studies in that.
Now, this means that these children didn't come across as confused about their gender identity, but as certain in their gender as cisgendered children. So just as, let's say, a cisgendered boy naturally identifies as a...
Because, I mean, like, most people conflate, like, sex and gender. So it's like, what's your gender? I'm a boy. I don't know. I'm not able to articulate what kind of bothers me on this, so I guess I might think of it later, I might not, who cares.
Boy, a transgender boy naturally identifies as a boy. So now let's shift gears and let's talk about the actual process of transitioning. I really would like to demystify something that this...
Like when it comes to the gender identity thing, I find it hard to believe that, say, this person is a man because he identifies as a man, and that's why he dresses the way he does and why he looks the way he does. I find that very difficult to buy. I feel like men dress a certain way and have certain expectations commonly put on them. A lot of it's to do with like society. Like he dresses this way probably because that's what his dad did. That's what like his friends did. I mean, less so with this specifically because this is Scrubs, but like in terms of like presenting oneself as a man, if you get me. So I find the gender identity explanation of cisgender or whatever extremely strange. And I feel like gender identity was come up with to include a very small amount of people to then have to explain everyone else as well and do so badly. But it doesn't really matter that they're doing so badly because it's for the small amount of people anyway. I had a pop at a trans person just last night on the Tiny Desk Music Contest on FB. Thing is, I was being concerned when I told the person they looked ill. The reply I got back was they thought I was having a breakdown. Yeah, trans people on the internet are wild. You can say the nicest thing. You can say you can ask the most basic of questions and they'll fucking flip their lid at you. Although it's always a fun game, actually. If someone's trans and a streamer, like tweet a general question about something that they've said and watch them completely spurg the fuck out at you on Twitter. Go to that person's stream and ask questions in a similar way. Like, don't be rude, just kind of, oh, you just said we need to stop being polite and start being radical. What do you mean by that? The energy is going to be completely different. Like, these people do not act the same way on Twitter as they do, like, on their streams and stuff. It's hilarious.
This whole process, I think, for a lot of people is a mystery for them, and they think a lot of bad things about it. And so let's get to the nitty-gritty of exactly what it is. Gender affirmation refers to the process of reflection, acceptance, and for some, intervention. Basically, the idea is to accept a person for who they are. So what is the typical course for a young person who seeks gender affirmative care? Well,
I guess the question on that part, would be something like, how do they know that this is who they are? I don't know.
First, it starts with social affirmation. Now, this includes adopting gender-affirming hairstyles and clothing. They also start using gender-affirming name and accurate pronouns. And they begin
facial transition
using non-binary restrooms or gender-identifying restrooms. So the first part of this really is just lifestyle-based. Now, the next step is puberty blockers. And I know that this is a bit of a controversial subject. So let's explain what this is. Gonadotropin-releasing hormones have been used since the 1980s to prevent puberty in children who have central precocious puberty. Basically, by giving these hormones, you can slow down that pubertal process and prevent it from happening. Now, they can be used in adolescence until the age of 16 to give the child and the parents and the healthcare professionals time to explore their gender identity, to develop coping skills, and to give mental health support and really overall support the family and, of course, define the goals of their treatment. Now, if these puberty blockers are halted, then they progress naturally into puberty. Well, studies show that providing puberty blockers to adolescents who identify as transgender generally leads to improved psychological functioning in the young adulthood. And really the goal is to prevent
So the studies in the US, I think, were very, affirming. We did a study based on the Dutch protocol, which is pretty much where most of this shit comes from. The British study, the ones that we did, it didn't show, an improvement in mental health.
Their natal gender physical pubertal changes from happening. So if somebody
trying to block the natural progression of biology feels so weird, but I guess kind of human. Yeah, I mean, hey, I guess I've done some of that myself to an extent. But yeah, it's kind of, it's what some people feel they need, I guess. To me, I think doing it to kids, you have to be so careful. And so many, not this person I'm saying, but so many of the kind of proponents of this kind of stuff are extremely gung-ho and often don't have kids themselves, so aren't very empathetic to parents, I don't find.
Is a transgender girl and they're starting to go through puberty, we don't want, let's say, the Adam's apple to enlarge, we don't want the facial changes to occur to make this transgender girl to develop more as a boy or a man. And this is because these can necessitate surgery to reverse, and obviously as a surgeon we know we don't want to perform surgery that we don't have to. Now the next step is
Wait, if it was for a trans woman, the only surgeries you get are SRS, which you'd need anyway. And that's kind of it. You might not need feminizing facial surgery anymore, I guess. You probably wouldn't need like electrolysis, which I guess is a good thing because it hurts like shit. But like, I don't know. We're not puberty blockers aren't really cutting out a huge amount of unnecessary surgery, I wouldn't say. And then they do potentially cause issues with surgery. Like if you don't grow properly down there, then you've got very little to work with when making a vagina out of a penis, for example.
Sex hormone therapy, and this starts in early adolescence.
You told someone to fuck themselves. Wrong answer, it got me banned. Yeah, fair enough. It happens. Listen, I get carried away sometimes. Like, I go hard on like Twitter and shit, but then the kind of shit people say to me, like if someone said that to me like on my stream, I'd act the exact same way, so I don't know.
Adolescence. So testosterone is given for female to male transgender patients, and estrogen plus androgen inhibitors are given for male to female transgender patients. And these medications give the transgender person the physical characteristics of their true gender identity.
What's electrolysis? Electrolysis is a method of hair removal. So if you have a beard and you're trying to get rid of it, you're either going to be getting electrolysis, which is where they put a needle individually into each follicle, like poke it in there and then run a small current in there and then pull the hair out. Really hurts. The other one is laser, which I've had a bunch of. It didn't work, so I wasted a bunch of money on that. But yeah, that's what that does. How's it going? Cupboard of cheese. How you doing? Yeah, I'm good.
Characteristics.
I've had a couple of electrolysis sessions, pretty much just solely focusing on like my upper lip. It's fuck, yeah, it's painful. Makes you sneeze and shit. It's like bizarre. Yeah, they properly stick a needle in next to the hair in the hole and like put an electric current through it. It's not fun.
Of their true
electrolysis is Tesla related. Listen, maybe I could use that and claim that Elon Musk came up with electrolysis and that actually he's pro-trans and we should all worship our Lord and Savior Elon Musk.
Gender identity. So if somebody's going from male to female, being on estrogen plus androgen inhibitor hormones would, let's say, give the person a higher voice, maybe softer features and other...
That doesn't happen, by the way. I don't know if you can tell by my voice. It's kind of always been like this. Your voice doesn't lower. I think most of the comments are probably pointing this out. And yeah, my anti-androgen, as it were, testosterone blocker was called Decapeptyl. It was horrible stuff. It made me extremely sensitive. Everything upset me. I fucking cried constantly, which is weird because I never cry. Shit, yeah, it wasn't nice. I don't recommend it, but then, I don't know. I guess everyone has different experiences. I was only on it for a few months because I had surgery quite soon after. I do like Elon. I'm not a fan of Elon personally. I don't really talk about him because I think there's enough trans people soying out about Elon Musk constantly. I think the thing for him is he posts the kind of political takes where I honestly can't tell if he's a bit dense or if he's just extremely like captured, you know? Like he seems like he's very like he's picked a side, you know? And he'll just propagandize for that side till the end of time. I don't know. But I don't care that much about Elon Musk personally, you know?
Traditionally female characteristics. For female to male, testosterone will make the voice deeper, it will give more facial hair, and give the figure more like a traditional male figure. Now, the last step in transitioning is gender-affirming surgeries. Now, the data is very clear that undergoing gender-affirming procedures, including surgery, is very beneficial for people with gender dysphoria. Now, there was a survey of over 22,000 transgender people, and they found that gender-affirming surgeries were associated with a 42% reduction in psychological distress and a 44% reduction in suicidal ideation when compared with transgender and gender-diverse people who had not.
Elon knows what he's doing. Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I don't follow him so closely. Like the kind of stuff he puts on Twitter, like it seems very it seems like propaganda just for the right rather than the left. I'm not really okay with it from one side but not the other, you know. I don't really like it on either side. But I sit more in the middle because I'm a liberal, so I guess that makes sense.
Had gender-affirming surgery, but they wanted it. But not all transgender people get surgery. In fact, the opposite is actually true. Approximately 1 in 4 transgender people undergo surgery. So 3 in 4 do not undergo surgery. So
3 in 4... You don't know how much of that is due to access. I mean, there's not many fucking what am I trying to say? There's not many post-op trans women in the UK at this point because they're all just fucking waiting. Have I seen Vivian's response to Elon? Who's Vivian? Do you mean Vivian Wolf? That's the only one I can think of. Hang on. I'll just search it quick. Maybe I'll find out. Oh, his daughter. God, I couldn't watch any of this shit. This looked like a fucking... This looked like some Jeremy Kyle shit. Like, I can't imagine having these, like, public spats with, like, family members over, like, Twitter or whatever. Like, God, this made me fucking cringe. Yeah, sorry, I thought you meant Vivian Wolf as in another cringe-lord trans person who I haven't spoken about yet, but I will one day.
So what are the types of procedures that are performed? Well, there are a lot. And although the less invasive procedures, like injectable fillers and Botox, can be done by a...
Yeah, I saw that. Like, I don't know. I find it too cringe and, like, too embarrassing. Like, yeah, I just can't imagine having, like, a family spat like that on the internet. Like, if one of my family, like, called me out or some shit, like, Jesus Christ. It was too cringe for me, I think. And I have a feeling if I watched it, I'd probably end up sympathizing with neither of them, and I'd just find them both, like, kind of embarrassing. But, hey.
Plethora of trained practitioners, the actual operations should in general be performed by a real plastic surgeon who specializes in these procedures. So for example, if you're transitioning from male to female and you're considering breast augmentation, you don't want to go to any old plastic surgeon to perform this surgery because it usually must be done differently than a standard breast augmentation.
Sol Wan, you're my biggest fan. Thank you. I appreciate that.
In a cisgendered female. So for example, the male nipple typically lies in a different place, usually a little bit lower than the female nipple, and this should be realized during the
lower, further apart. You end up with that kind of thing going on, if you know what I mean. It's like you're a bit cockeyed, but instead it's your nipples.
Operation. Now, gender-affirming operations are separated into three basic categories. There's facial reconstructive surgery, top surgery, and bottom surgery. Top surgery and facial reconstruction surgery are usually performed first. Now, I get a lot of people who call my office for gender affirmation surgery, and I'll tell you, this is not something that I actually perform actively. And this is because I strongly believe that these operations are so specialized that only specialists should perform them. And I am not a gender affirmation surgery specialist. So when people call my office for these types of operations, I will usually refer them to specialists across the country who I trust. That being said, we do injections in my office because I do think that these are not quite as complex and can be performed by a lot of different experts in the field. Now, what about gender affirmation surgery regret? There are people who believe that a high...
Okay, so we finally got... I for some reason, I thought this was more about detransition than what it was, but hey.
Percentage of transgender people who undergo gender affirmation surgery regret it later. Well, the truth is, a recent study revealed only a 1% incidence of surgery regret after...
I guess gas is the... I often wonder how surgeons can mold human flesh without being grossed out. I guess they just get desensitized. I don't know. This is definitely one of the... I'm sure this is one of the same ones that was brought up. Yeah, low regret rate apparently.
After gender affirmation surgery, just 1%. So the belief that a high percentage of transgender people who undergo gender affirmation procedures regret them later, that is just not true.
Well, there's two problems. The first off is that any study that is measuring this, it'll be a snapshot of that time. We don't know who's going to go on to regret it. The other thing is the amount of trans people that don't even get the surgery in the first place. If that was to become more, would there be more regret? We don't really know that either. And then the third thing is, if we're to keep making it younger and younger and normalize like kids transitioning, is that another thing that might spur on more regret because people are making crazy big decisions with their lives when they're really, really young, you know? So I guess those are the questions I'd have for that.
So what do I believe about gender-affirming care and specifically Dylan Mulvaney? Well, life is not easy for people who are LGBTQ. For hundreds of years, they've been discriminated against.
It's not that bad. I don't know. I'm extremely mentally ill and I'm trans, and life isn't that bad. Puberty about to become a choice. Yeah, kind of feels that way. Everyone goes on blockers and has to decide for themselves. It's 2060. Yeah, I don't know. Sounds terrifying to me, but in 2060, I'll be 70 years old, so. As I said before, I'm old, go back in time. 2012, Gary Bell, aka the Spaceman, he was addressing Elon on the esoterical level, SpaceX, aka SpaceX. Fair enough.
Bullied, harassed, ridiculed, and pushed to believe that something is inherently wrong with them. This type of bullying and hateful behavior is so incredibly harmful.
Oh, nice. I'll have to have a look at what kind of stuff you make. That'd be cool. I make my own music. I'll share links periodically, I guess.
And it results in high rates of suicide, depression, and overall unhappiness. What are we doing? Well, whenever possible, we should first and foremost love each other, no matter the color of our skin, our socioeconomic status, or...
Yes, let's all be nice to each other. I mean, to be fair, that is kind of an obvious conclusion. And yeah, we probably should be nicer to each other, but it doesn't seem to work out very well, so I don't know.
The gender we believe we really are. Now, if you find Dylan Mulvaney weird or annoying or an opportunist, then just don't follow her. Don't let her transition affect you then, and please focus on being nice.
Well, I mean, she's a representative. She has to consider how she's coming across. It's a bit more complicated than just, well, it doesn't affect you. Well, is that true though, you know?
To our fellow human beings. Now, I know I'm probably gonna lose a lot of followers for saying that, but that's okay. Life is short, my friends. Let's not spend it being mean to each other, but instead practice kindness and empathy. Now, you know, I recently reacted to a video of a young...
I'm gonna say something right now, like, there's a lot of empathy missing in trans circles, so I think it's more than just like transphobes that need to listen to shit like that. Maybe we can collaborate one. Yeah, of course. I'm always up for stuff. I have a home studio. Expecting everyone to be kind when a lot of people were insulted by Dylan. Well, yeah, I mean, that's another thing. You're going to get women that see that kind of thing as like woman face or like a parody or something. You've got people like Josh Seitner, who is apparently a fucking trans parody or something. Why do people act like the criticism of Dylan Mulvaney are all to do with the fact he's supposedly trans? I don't know. I have a problem with like the trans periods thing and shit like that. I don't know. Fuck knows.